Je vous en prie.
Good morning, everyone. Please take a seat. I'm very happy to be moderating this session, during which we'll highlight two projects which will change the sea. To better know it, better protect it. That's your objective for the both of you. On my left is Élise, Head of International Communications at the Sea Cleaners. Good morning and thank you for being here. And by your side is François FREY, CEO at ESPRIT VELOX. So thank you for being here, and we're going to learn more about your projects, starting with you, Élise. The Sea Cleaners, where did this project come from? How was it born, and whose initiative was this? The Sea Cleaners was established in 2016. It's an initiative which was launched by Yvan Gagnon, a French navigator who went around the world with his parents from age 8 to age 12, with his parents and his younger brother at the start of the 1980s. And of course, that tour around the world was fundamental in his later life, because then he went on to navigate the seas around the world, and both of them even participated in races throughout the world. And then Yvan wanted to raise awareness on environmental causes, and he then went on another world tour from 2013 to 2015 on a catamaran, and various times he was completely trapped in seas of plastic, and he wanted to go back to Sri Lanka, to the Maldives, to Indonesia, where he would have gone in the first place with his parents. And that's when he realized that these places had turned into open-air landfills, and he thought, right, we have garbage trucks on land, so why not have the same solution but at sea? So he decided to create the Manta catamaran to clean up the oceans. At first, he wanted to clean those continents of plastics. There are 5 of them in the world, so-called continents of plastics, and he was told that due to currents, this would not be possible. So he decided to focus around the shoreline and along estuaries and waterways. So he created the Sea Cleaners for this project. Continents of plastics, what are we speaking about here? Just a few figures, not to depress us all, but just so that we have a concrete idea of what we're looking at here. 1 ton of waste is dumped every second, and 81% of plastics turned into waste after 1 year. So that's quite telling. To give you an order of magnitude of the disaster at hand, we ingest the equivalent of 1 credit card every week. That's something you might know. We inhale, we swallow lots of micro and nanoplastics. So we have plastic everywhere in our brains, in the placenta of babies, and we're not quite sure what the impact of that plastic pollution will be on the human body, but we're definitely headed towards a disaster. All right, so that's the situation. So how many people do you have within Sea Cleaners who are engaged? Who are they? What's their profile? At the Sea Cleaners, there are 37 of us, and no one was here out of pure coincidence. We're all very committed. Our HQ is in Gagny-sur-Mer in Brittany, and all of our communications teams is based in Paris. And we also have an office in Switzerland. We have operations in Indonesia, so we have an office over there, and we will be opening new offices throughout the world very soon. And we also have 2,000 volunteers, without whom none of this would be possible. We organize picking campaigns on beaches every year. So these volunteers are extremely helpful, and they are wonderful. let us take a look at a few images while we speak about the Manta, first of all. No sound because we wanted to listen to you since you are here. So the Manta is a huge beast, right? I used to say that the Manta is just as big as the Arc of Triumph that you can see here on the screen, actually. So this Manta boat uses renewables and will use plastic to turn it into energy. There's an embedded a plant. And here you have various collections. Means these are nets that go 1 meter under the surface, and then the waste is processed on board. When rivers are too shallow or too tight, we can send out these modulars, and we have one of them operating in Bali as we speak upon recommendation of the government of Bali. So we have modulars 8 and 10, which can collect waste, which is then taken over to the Manta, and then you're working to take a look at the a plant that we have on board. And if I may suggest, we have screens right here before you that may be more comfortable for you. So we have technicians on board who sorts out the waste. And for the waste that's of reasonable quality, we will be using it to turn it into energy on board. And for the rest of the waste, they'll be taken ashore to processing plants. So we have a gas system with a clean incineration system. We have an embedded engineering studio at Sea Cleaners, and that plastics in all of that plastic is turned into gas and allows the boat to run on that fuel. But we also have solar panels and wind technology. So you collect, you recycle with the Manta. Any other aspects? Well, this is an ambassador boat of everything that can be done to protect the oceans. So we also have, you can see the hydro generators here, and we also have 2 labs on board for scientific research programs. We can welcome up to 32 people on the Manta, with around a dozen researchers who will be on board for each research assignment. And we also have a large conference room. So every time we'll have a 1-week break at a port. We'll be organizing conferences and awareness sessions, since we also have an education and awareness division, which is very important. We don't want people to think, right, since we now have a collector boats, there's nothing else we need to do. No, we absolutely need to reduce how much plastic we consume. Whether it be here or in other countries. I mean, in Indonesia, clearly there's still so much to be done. We need to do everything we can to reduce how much plastic we consume. In terms of volumes, how much can you collect? You said 1 ton of plastic is dumped into the ocean every second, which is really alarming. But that Manta boat, you know, is not the kind of boat you can build overnight. What kind of volumes can you collect? Around 10,000 tons. But our objective is for this boat to be an ambassador, and as such will publish its plans on an open databases, and we really want governments to be inspired. We are a non-profit organization. We're not a startup. We work for the common good. We are not going to be listed. So we want the Manta to just be copied. And so should India, China, or a country in Latin America want to build 200 boats like the Manta, you're very welcome. Go ahead. So 10,000 tons, you were saying, for any given journey? Well, for a 3-week journey. Usually, now we go at sea for 3 weeks. And after 3 weeks, we go back on shore to organize awareness sessions, to meet with local stakeholders, to allow for staff rotation, and we really want to make sure that we can meet local stakeholders as well, local NGOs, local players. They know the situation best, and we work, for example, with an Indonesian actor for all of our awareness campaigns. Our office lead in Indonesia is someone that's from the local community. That's the way we go about this. But how did you build the Amenta? Well, we had a tender last year, around 30. We had approximately 30 responses, and now we're shortlisting our shipyard, and by the start of 2024, we'll be choosing our shipyard. And when should it be delivered? Well, we're hoping that it will go at sea in 2026. Obviously, COVID delayed the operations as with everyone. Okay, so we've seen that you had these modulars which were already operational. Yes, we have modular 8, which is already in operations. It's in Bali, and they can collect up to 2.4 tons every day. And also it can collect hydrocarbon leaks. And it's also something that we've been using as an educational platform. We have school visits, university visits, and we organize awareness campaigns in this way. We also have a partnership with the main university in Bali, which is a subsidiary of the CNES. Mr. Bonal from the CNES was here earlier on with CLS. Will be working on the movements of waste. And last year, for example, the CLS launched from the island of Jakarta a tag, and its movement was indeed very extensive. So again, to raise awareness on sea waste. So cleaners, sea cleaners also studies movements of plastic. Yes, with the Udayana University in Bali, we'll have research programs. We're currently choosing the research programs, but it could be the impact of plastic pollution on marine biodiversity, on certain fish spheres. Unfortunately, plenty of possibilities. How much does it cost to build a boat such as the Menta, which is just as high as the Arc of Triumph? Well, 40 million euros. For associations such as ours, it's a lot, but for states or certain large companies, it's not so much. So we have raised a third of the total sum, and we're still looking for partners. So I'm turning to you, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to jump in. Modular 8 costs 300K and 500K for Modular 10. They're built by Efilar, a partner based in Paimpol, and which is a shipbuilder, and we're still looking for our next partner countries. We have open discussions with a number of countries such as Malaysia, India, Uruguay. So you want to target these areas in particular because there are continents of plastics over there, right? Yes, these would be priority countries highly impacted by plastics pollution. Thank you so much for highlighting sea cleaners. Your message has been heard loud and clear. Turning to you, François FREY, CEO of ESPRIT VELOX. ESPRIT VELOX was launched in 2014 with around a dozen volunteers, around 50 partner companies, a research lab. What's your objective? Well, 10 years back, before COP21, Before the COP21, oceans were not really on the radar in biodiversity or climate conversations. In rooms just like these with industrial players, in the maritime industry, decarbonization was definitely not on the agenda. 10 years back, this is something that was really not on the agenda of the IMO. And back then, people would have said, look, just go and try to do something with the air industry, because what they're doing is so much worse than what we do. But oceans account for half of the world's climate and biodiversity challenges, but less than 2% of world research budget. So that's quite a huge gap. More than 95% of what's happening in the ocean is completely unknown to us. We're very interested by the areas ranging from the tropics to the north or south poles. And when we look at maps, we can see 1,830 or 50. Okay, so maps dating back from 1830, 1850, maybe, a few things have happened since then. And, last night we thought, okay, we are in the Titanic ballroom, and the accident happened 50 years ago, and it's still hard for us to understand, to get to grasp with the fact that that accident happened. So for the past 8 years, at our own scale, with a sphere of influence that's growing in importance, we're trying to put things back in the right order. So first of all, it means that we've worked with scientists to help them understand what ocean sciences may look like in the next 30 years with that 2050 milestone. And then quite quickly we realized that actually we needed to do science differently by working on an interdisciplinary basis, which is something you all try to do in your respective companies too. So working with specialists who will be complementing one another, since when you work together, you always go faster. And we also want to work closer to the ocean world. What's absolutely amazing when you're at sea is that you're never quite at home, and so you shouldn't. So how can you bring together people who proclaim to be ocean scientists, who may go at sea for long assignments 7-8 times in their lifetimes, so that they think in a way that can be merged seamlessly into the ocean in a completely impact-free way. 2014, 2015, that impact-free was our approach before the IMO, before the UN defined milestones by 2030 and by 2050. So back then we thought, right, how can we work at sea, being completely invisible and oblivious to the marine world without creating any disturbances? You know, when you work on climate sciences, when you collect water and air, to make things very short, to track biological gases, heavy materials, and you have to use really heavy material, then there might be, you know, some sort of a discrepancy. So we thought, okay, so we should not be rejecting anything, releasing anything into the air and nor into the water. And moreover, and this is something that will be particularly important in the 20 years to come, without making any noise. Noise today is a completely unknown impact for sea professionals, for the public at large, and yet it has wide-ranging impact in terms of biodiversity. For example, large sea animals fleeing noise and dying because of noise. But there's also an impact on climate. If you have a huge ship going by, plankton, which produces half of the oxygen, which is so important for us, will stop producing that oxygen because of that noise. You can also think of the fleet at sea, the traffic at sea, along these main so-called routes. Oxygen production levels are dropping at alarming levels. So it's a biodiversity and a climate problem. And so from 2016 and 2017, we decided to try to come up with a platform through which we could do scientific work, but in a completely invisible manner for the climate. So with that Scandinavian and Swiss angle, because they really were pioneers in this field, we constituted an initial pool of companies that we've worked with since 2016, roughly. So now there are 10 of us working on this project, steering this project, but there are more than 1,000 people, engineers, technicians, who are working on the project. And the idea would be to complete our studies by mid-2025 and to be at sea by the start of 2027, to go around the Atlantic on a large, on a wide tour to just, check that everything is okay. And we're also working with the French oceanographic fleet and French authorities, who have asked us to go to the Pacific, which is a very important area indeed for other reasons, as we discussed yesterday, and yet an area which is almost unknown from a scientific viewpoint. So the idea would be to go over there by 2028 with a platform that will be 70 meter long. There you have it on the slide. With around 50 people on board who will be fully autonomous from an energy standpoint. So the only energy which will be used on board will be produced on board, so clean energy. And there will be up to 30 researchers for up to 100 days at sea. We do not have any fossil fuels on that ship. Okay, so you're using what kind of a propulsion system? Well, sail with the sails in the first place, and there will be a grid as well, a grid system. Producing electricity on board is quite easy with the wind, with the sun, also with the waves. And it's also quite simple to say, look, these are objects with a rather important life cycle, 50 years. So it will be quite interesting. It will be quite easy to plug or unplug on that electric grid things we may not necessarily be thinking of today, but which are currently being prepared with the industrial players with whom we're partnering and which will emerge gradually. Okay, so by design, it was this is a boat which will be adapted to future technologies. This is something that we worked on with the IMO, with ship owners, with innovators. Eric Blanel also is someone we've been working with the Bureau Veritas as well. And some of the things that were discussed yesterday, well, we are an island on our own, and this island needs to be able to live, whether it is circulating around the poles or in the tropics. So you have teams, you have a zero impact boat, which can go at sea for around 100 days. Because, well, you need to collect data, and this is an impact free. So what will be the speed? Well, actually, we'll be going at a speed that's completely similar to the current scientific programs, between 8 and 12 knots. So absolutely no race here. We'll be moving at a pace that's completely similar to scientific programs at sea today. So you'll be collecting various types of data. You spoke of sound data, biodiversity. You will not be able to do it all at the same time. What will be your priority for your first time around? Well, actually, we'll be doing everything at the same time, and that was really a strategic choice from our scientists. The idea really is to get out of, to go away from the beaten track. When you have a scientific program at sea, you might want to collect data which are relevant for your very own program, but also for biologists. And unfortunately, due to the silo system in scientific funding, sometimes for as much as you may have data to be collecting as you go, you cannot do that because you do not have the funding for that. But here we really want to go out sea with at least three scientific teams, each with their own specialty, and we'll have hard and human sciences in each of these teams, and they'll be associated with certain number of artists as well, because they have a vision that goes beyond that of scientists. And something that's incredible is that artists have absolutely no zone of comfort whatsoever, contrary to scientists. And when you sell a scientific program to on board, that is just the way that you may sell a product. In a company, you need to know the result before operations happen. But in sciences, you need doors to be open. And given the current sense of emergency, we need to have that kind of strategy in your scientific approach. So we will be multiplying the number of eyes on the same topic. Okay, so you have public and private funding. With regards to your private partners, well, your technological private partners, apart from labs. Well, first of all, energy players. So ABB, for example, which is a huge European player, even larger than Europe, actually, but they were heavily involved in the project. There will also be companies which are interested in developing energy production from sites or situations which are somewhat experimental to this day. We're working with NG and the Atlantic projects on electricity production and sailing, and for the past 3 years we have made tests to optimize production and to integrate risks. So SOLAS, color code, we need to minimize risks for the teams who will be on board, and we need to have that level of autonomy both in the tropics and in both poles. So we need to work with industrial players on storing electric production power generation and propulsion. If all goes well to this day, for your propeller, you will be having an efficiency of 65%, but due to our propulsion choice, we would be losing out on 35% of that power. So we've worked with a startup, with a large French group, which usually produces grayer ships, and here we'll be going up to 90% on a system that's reversible, that can generate power when you're sailing with a power reserve. So we have completely redistributed these roles and functions with our platform to have that real cooperation approach with our partners and with industrial players, and to have a platform which can live off of almost off-the-shelf elements which were not necessarily related to the maritime, in the sense that these were land applications more frequently. And then we can mix everything up so that the flag and the ranking institutions can give their green light. And then once we go out sea, SOLAS will be probably completely questioned in its current rules of operations. And here there are alternative routes, but very often that's not possible because ship owners, for example, have no money to do that, so they do not opt for these alternative solutions. But we want to take that risk because it's very important to create that industrial ecosystem, which will then be used by further players to no longer say, look, this is impossible. No, everything is possible. And then hopefully very quickly we'll be achieving our objectives to reduce environmental impacts.
But also to reduce geostrategic impacts. We've been seeing it since the Ukraine war. The cost of fuels went through certain developments. The French oceanographic fleet is docked several months a year because there are no budgets. Science is a bit like fishing. A price per day is decided half by the fuels that you'll put on board. We have no fuel. So very quickly, it's very exciting, but this is almost the end of this discussion. It's a bit more trivial, but the financial impact, is it fully funded, the platform? It's 50% funded. So the companies that provide the onboard solutions provide R&D. It's a real investment for them because we're helping a whole value chain emerge. And we're working with government bodies with the French stimulus plan because the government's asking us to be a stakeholder in the power generation and operation of the boat to the tune of 20 to 25%. So right now we're indeed trying to find major sponsors to finance roughly half. So 45 to 50 million we still need to find. Very clear. Thank you very much to the two of you. I wish we could have more time to keep the discussion going, but we'll need to go to the break. So thank you anyway for your insights. And the discussion will resume at 11:10, if I'm not mistaken.